Let's now actually go across to Shireen because she has been in conversation with the top leadership at industry body FICCI, getting their reactions in on Union Budget 2024.
Joining me now to understand how the budget will provide more confidence to industry when we talk about investment and employment and the other growth-related measures are Dr. Anish Shah, the President FICCI and the Group CEO and MD of Mahindra Group, Anant Goenka, the Vice President at FICCI and the Vice Chairman of RPG Group, Uday Shankar, the past President at FICCI and Founder, Marigold Park Capital Advisors, Cyrill Shroff, Chair of FICCI's Committee on Corporate Governance and Corporate Laws and Managing Partner at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, and Dinesh Kanabar, member of FICCI's Committee on Taxation and the CEO of Dhruva Advisors. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Anish, to you first. As we go over the fine print of the budget, and of course, all of this will have an impact, not just in the near term, but in the medium to the long term, especially on announcements that are still work in progress. What is the biggest takeaway that industry sees the government sending the message out?
Shireen, the biggest takeaway is, as you mentioned, continuity and stability in the growth agenda for the economy. We are very glad to see that the growth agenda continues. The focus on infrastructure, on capex, on skilling, manufacturing, agriculture, these are all aspects that are very positive for the industry and something that portrays well for India to be able to meet its Viksit Bharat goals.
But, speaking of some of those goals, and I think the big focus area in the speech, and she started her speech with employment as well as skilling, and that's been a point of criticism, and the government trying to combat that on a front foot. The three schemes that the government has put forward, and it hopes that industry will participate and partake in those. What is your take on what the government is trying to do to formalize jobs, linking these incentives to the EPFO, and basically asking industry to up hiring as well as skilling? How do you see these schemes that the government has put forward in the budget?
It's a step in the right direction, Shireen, and it is right for the government to say that the private sector has to step in and partner with us, because driving growth in the economy cannot be left only to the government. I think they've done a number of things to help facilitate that, and it is up to the private sector to step up from a capex standpoint as well as from a skilling standpoint to be able to create the environment to be to ensure jobs in the economy, and that's what's going to drive growth. For manufacturing, if we've got to be multiples of where we are today to meet the Viksit Bharat goals, these are the right steps that will help us head in that direction.
Anant, the expectation was that more PLI schemes would be announced. That's not been the case. What the government has instead decided to do is to give some support to MSMEs, also look at creating export hubs that are linked to e-commerce, also create industrial parks and so on and so forth. From a manufacturing standpoint and specifically from a fresh investment standpoint, how do you read the budget?
So as you was shared, that it is a step of continuity, stability. I think there's a lot that has come in terms of the comprehensiveness of the budget. It covers the 9 priority sectors from agriculture to urban development, Make in India and various other areas. So it is very comprehensive. And finally, there's a lot of element of fiscal discipline that has come in, where we're seeing fiscal deficit being at about 4.9%. In terms of the manufacturing, focus on MSMEs has been important. The entire aspect of security being given to them, credit being handed out to them is going to be a very important step, because they are such a large share of the manufacturing space. I think that is certainly important. And then the area that was touched upon was the entire skilling piece and various new experiments where you're looking at opportunities for first-timers to come into the job market and providing some incentives on that front, as well as internships and other areas which we've not heard before. So as Anish mentioned, it is time for us to partner with government and make sure we make these schemes a success.
Uday, lots of adjustments, which is work in progress, including the simplification of the Income Tax Act, more measures to draw in FDI, which the Finance Minister said, the government will relay back to us what they intend to do specifically. But, your big takeaway as far as the union budget is concerned.
Thank you, Shireen. So 2 or 3 things. First of all, a budget is an economic document, but it's also an instrument of, government's policy indication. And I think on that, it scores very, very heavily. I think there is a huge focus that government has put on rural area, improving productivity of agriculture and building infrastructure in rural areas, whether it is rural housing, whether it is support for women, whether it is incentives for agricultural productivity, etc. I think that's a very, very important message. And I think what I find very powerful in this budget is a balance between growth and welfare and things like employment generation.
Mr. Shroff, let me address that issue with you. This has been speculated on for months now of whether we are going to finally see this happen in this budget. But perhaps, one can argue about the timing, but the timing would never have been perfect for such a move to have happened anyway. What do you see as the medium to long-term implications of the measures announced when we talk about capital gains?
I think given in that sense, some of the frothiness in the markets, it was probably expected. So I agree with you that timing is never perfect for this. But if I can just step back and make a more general comment. So budgets these days are more signaling and they are less detailed documents because there are a lot of opportunities during the year to make changes and to adjust policy and do more fine-tuning. So I see a lot of signals in this budget. One is, I think, for everything that has been mentioned in terms of the 9 pillars of focus, employment, energy security, infrastructure, all of that. Second, I think, articulating a financial sector vision. So the vision itself hasn't been spelled out, but the fact that there is going to be a financial sector vision, I think, is very important. Also, the signal that direct tax, the tax code is going to be revamped and simplified. I think that's a big signal as well. So just in terms of all these signals put together, the ease of doing business and making India a easier place to do business, I think is the mega signal of this budget, and supporting all the basic stuff for for continuing the growth story. One can also see the implications of the recent election on Andhra, on Bihar, Northeast as well. These are direct implications of the fallout of the elections.
That's right. We do have that special assistance being granted to Andhra Pradesh of 15,000 crores and measures being announced for the state of Bihar as well, crucial allies for the BJP as part of this NDA government. And you're right in pointing out very high on intent and signaling on many aspects. That's been the overall intent of the budget and the finance minister. But Mr. Kanabar, you've been with us, going over the fine print and helping clarify some of the doubts that may arise from what the budget has delivered. And again, even if you look at the stock market reaction, it has recovered coming off its intraday low, so that knee-jerk as well seems to be being digested at this point in time. Broadly, from a valuations perspective, from a flows perspective, how do you see things changing post the budget?
I think first thing, Shireen, is that there is this commitment which has been given, and I believe that it's a commitment which will actually be implemented in simplifying the tax code. So, leaving aside this 10 to 12.5%, there has been a total rationalization of classifying assets into blocks of financial and non-financial assets, short-term and long-term, and having a consistent rate for both resident and non-resident. Very, very welcome. In the context of litigation, there is an introduction of VSV scheme, a Vivad Se Vishwas scheme too, which I think should help move things forward. So I can see quite a bit of intent on implementation on a number of things. Similarly, there are changes on charity, and this whole commitment which has been given that the tax regime will be rehauled in the next 6 months, and hopefully, therefore, the next budget will see a number of changes for simplification is very, very welcome. So the way I see it is number of changes. In fact, I had not anticipated so many changes. The memorandum explaining the provisions of changes is 116 pages long, which is quite a lot of tax work, but most of it in the right direction. Whenever there is a change, not everybody is going to like the change, but overall a very right direction.
Yes, right direction. But Mr. Kanabar, I just wanted to get you and maybe Mr. Shroff and others to comment on some of those tax-related changes, because one of the things that we've seen, real estate has been the big mover as far as the last few years are concerned, especially in a post-COVID period. And what we have now seen are the LTCG changes, and they're likely to be taxing for real estate because the indexation benefits have been taken away. So how do you see this impacting the real estate sector from here on? I'll start with you, Mr. Kanabar.
So two things. First, indeed, taking away of indexation is a major impact. But Shireen, what most people tend to forget is that there are two benefits available in the Income Tax Act. One is a resetting of the cost base to 2001, and indexation is post that. That resetting of the cost base is continuing. So if you sell a house which is 50 years old, you have to take the market value as of 2001. Now you got an indexation beyond 2001 to 2024, say, that is gone. But the cost base is gone, number one. Number two, the benefit of investing money from sale of a house into another residential house continues, subject, of course, to you not having more than two houses. So while I would say this is a step back, what you are seeing is reduction of rate of tax from 20 to 12.5%. Doing away with the indexation, continuing with this whole proposition that a house for a house continues, or any other asset to a house also continues, subject to certain limits.
That's right. Mr. Shroff, you want to comment on that? And also specifically, some of the other measures announced, you talked about the abolishment of the angel tax, which has been a big peeve for many years now. In fact, I can't remember how many years have gone by when industry has been asking for the abolishing of the angel tax. It's now finally been done across all asset classes. Also, the equalization levy, which was imposed a couple of years ago, that's been done away with as well. So, Mr. Shroff, your comments on that?
No, so both these are very welcome changes and probably meets the demand that has been there for a number of years. So, I mean, that's a strong thumbs up both for angel tax and equalization levy. Coming to your real estate point, I think the market will take some time to understand the changes and the actual practical implications. In the short term, it may be a bit of a dampener, but I don't think it's going to have a long-term effect on the real estate market.
Okay. Anish, back to you now. Would you say that between what the survey said and what the budget has delivered, there seems to be now a change in the government's thinking, or perhaps the government's approach to say that, look, over the last few years, we've done some record spending, and it has been record. And I mean, even today's number is nothing to scoff at 11.11 lakh crore rupees. It's a sizable amount that the government has put on capex. Would industry take away the message that perhaps that kind of record capex growth is, for now, there is a need to temper that expectation and that assumption?
Shireen, I believe the government's sending a message to the private sector saying, we've done our part, it's time for you to do yours. So that's clearly one message coming out of this. But if I were to look at the rest of the budget in context of this, the focus on infrastructure and some of the spend associated with that is very positive. So on balance, again, we feel that this is very much a growth-oriented budget in line with what has been done over the past few years and in line with the economic survey.
Anant, plenty there in terms of confidence-building measures, but I think the biggest one is the government signaling that it is not deviating from what has been its stated intent and its stated objective. It will continue down the path of reforms. Now, that ninth priority, next generation reforms, and again, sketchy in detail, because at the end of the day, you also require the states to play ball and industry to come on board as well. So all stakeholders will need to play a part in ensuring that those next generation reforms go through. But, factor market reforms that the finance minister spoke of, do you feel confident that we are going to move down that path?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be very important for the states to play ball. We have seen some continuity and good working between governments which are common, where you have the same party ruling the same government, but sometimes states do go their own way. And there is a difference in level of speed and capability between the central government and many states. So certainly I think that alignment is very much needed. In other next generation reforms, I think climate change is one very important area that was touched upon, areas like carbon markets and so on, even new age thinking such as the nuclear power plants, which was small nuclear power plants doing R&D for nuclear and providing that energy security. I think that's another very interesting and new initiative that can help us in the longer term. So I think these are areas where the center and state have to play ball. The challenge may arise in states which are non-governed by BJP leaders.
Well, collaborative federalism is the need of the hour more than competitive federalism at this point in time. Uday, I'll give you the final closing word here. I think India is probably the only large economy where the budget continues to have this much importance, significance and relevance, primarily because it is a document that unveils the government's thinking on economic policy and future reforms. So what, to your mind, would be the big headline from Budget 2024? In 6 months, we'll have another budget to contend with, but the big headline from Budget 2024.
So the big headline for the budget is very clearly, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
The big headline for the budget is very clearly the focus on rural areas, focus on building productivity and capacity in agriculture, continued focus on infrastructure, not just in urban areas, but also in rural areas. Very sharp focus on backward states of Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. And of course, the focus on employment and skilling. I think employment and skilling is really, really something that could do with all the focus. And I think in that sense, it's a very powerful statement. And one final one is the fact that the government has clearly said that the stock market exuberance story is not going to be unchecked.
Well, that's the message to the stock markets. I think they had come in prepared for some sort of action as far as futures and options are concerned. I don't think the market was fully prepared for a move on long-term capital gains, but that has come. And as I pointed out, there is no perfect time, and I guess the markets have rallied so significantly. India has been one of the best performing markets in the world that perhaps the government thought that this might be the best time to roll out what has been long anticipated and long pending. Well, gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18 with your take on the fine print of the union budget. It's a vote for continuity, a vote for macroeconomic stability that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has delivered in the floor of the House. From all of us here for now, goodbye and many thanks for watching.